Hello everyone. Today I will tell you 5 horror stories about strange phone calls. If you like them, please subscribe to us to bring you more exciting stories. I have been encouraged to share my story, so here it is. I'm not much of a writer. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. So here it goes. One evening I was sat at home and the phone rang. The call was from a complete stranger. He said that he was calling from a phone booth and the caller had confirmed this. He said that he was in possession of something that I had lost. I've got something you lost. I was skeptical at first because I didn't remember losing anything. I actually thought it might just be someone pranking me. You know when someone's calling from the payphone, and it's someone you don't know. You always have to be a little skeptical, right? I told the guy that I didn't think that I had lost anything and I went to hang up. But then he said, "Hey, wait, look, if I kept this thing, this item of yours, and the cops got involved, I think that I could be in trouble." You know, with Johnny Lawright, I didn't really get the message he was trying to send my way. To be honest, I really didn't want to be on the phone with that guy any longer than I had to be either, because he gave me the creeps. I thought that he was just bullshitting me, so I went to hang up on him. But then the words that followed chilled me to my core. "Hey, wait again. Wait. Hold on. Hold up. Listen. I know your home address. I know your old address. I know your new address. I know your phone number. Your cell phone number. I know what classes you take at university. Your student too. I know when you were born. I know your family. I know your sister's birthday. Why you don't think I don't know that? I'm telling you now, as a person who knows you pretty well, that I have something you lost." Okay. I was shocked and I could do little more than to just remain in silence. "I'm going to leave it at the convenience store near your place. Okay. You can't miss it. Listen. Hey, listen to me. One piece of advice for you here, be careful." I went to the store in the morning. There was no way in hell I was going at night. I thought it was still a prank at this point. Well, I guess hope would have been the operative word. I went in and asked the clerk if there had been any lost property handed in recently, and to my surprise he came from the back with a box and he fished something out of it. It was just a notebook, but I didn't recognize it. I opened it up and I gave it a read. It was riddled with my personal information. It was an entire dossier of my movements over the last 10 years. Literally everything I had done since high school. I saw something jutting out of the notebook that shocked me. I hadn't seen it in over 10 years. There before my eyes was a bookmark I thought I had lost at high school. I recognized it instantly as it was a handmade gift from a friend. I found something else. It was a performance review by a teacher who was really harsh on me. Not only that, but there were strands of my hair in the pages. It was horrifying. I asked the clerk to write down the dates and time that someone dropped this off at the store, and he did. As soon as I left the store, I called my parents and I explained what happened. Through intervals of sobbing, we then got the police involved, but they were of no use. Over 10 years have passed and nothing has come from either the police investigation or the person who kept that dossier on me. I studied the handwriting style and I looked out for it pretty much in any place I could, but I could never place it. I asked friends of friends. I carried that notebook around in my purse for longer than I want to admit, just on the off chance that I could find whoever called me and bring them to justice for stalking me. No one I showed it to recognized the handwriting. I gave up on the thing I was sick of looking at. It's probably ended up in the trash since I've moved around a couple of times. I will admit, this happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. It's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, but I'm glad to say that it's all over well. I hope it is. If something else happens, I'll post it online. I used to work in a hospital in the countryside, right in the middle of nowhere. It was an old building and it probably was a lot busier a long time ago when there was more housing in the area. But like they say, progress is impossible without change. Anyway, since it was an old and outdated place, there was a payphone on one of the floors right in the corner. I always noticed it because it was bright pink. It was retro and it only took coins. No phone cards. I never saw anyone use the thing. I was wondering if that was because it was hidden away in a corner. That's just the way it was. I noticed one day that it looked a bit busted up. Maybe someone took some bad news they received out on it or something. Either way, the handset didn't look like it sat in the cradle right. So I had the choice of dispose of it or find someone to repair it. It seemed like it still worked. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside, so I added it to the list of other stuff that I was supposed to get done. No priority. For some reason or another, I didn't get around to it. I just didn't want to touch the thing. I didn't like it, and I'll tell you why. I heard the thing ring occasionally. Not often. Maybe once in a month. Give or take. I mean, who would be calling a hospital payphone? Especially late at night. It always rang late at night. I heard a ring during the night shift about a dozen times. Call me crazy, but I started to count how many seconds it rang for. It was always 10 seconds. It was in the court of a quiet ward, so it was always quite alarming when you would hear that retro payphone ring. The trill of that thing echoed through the long corridors. I have to admit, when it rang it was pretty creepy. I never tried to answer it. Never wanted to. Something told me that I shouldn't answer it. Maybe it was down to the time it rang or the quiet part of the hospital it was in. But something told me, stay clear. I didn't see anyone else answer it either. It was like there was some unwritten rule in the hospital about it. When it rang, the staff in the vicinity would ignore it. So after a while you kind of ignored it too. One night, however, something changed. The phone rang as it usually did, and I looked over briefly. I then heard the approaching footfall of a junior doctor. She went over and picked up the phone. I guess this was the first time she heard it ring. A doctor down the hallway called out to her. He told her to ignore it, but the young intern was full of vigor and eager to please, so she just went ahead and answered it cheerfully. I watched the whole thing. She didn't say a word. She held the phone close to her ear. I watched her optimistic smile fade into a concerned frown. She then hung up. She looked so scared. Her personality wasn't so bubbly anymore. It was like that phone call took something from her. She grew darker and darker and eventually she was signed off work with an illness. The rumor was that it was just a cold. But when she wasn't back a month later, I was told by an older colleague that she had simply retired. I don't know what happened with her, but I'm glad I got the chance to transfer to a new hospital not long after that. I don't know if that pink payphone is still there or not. I hope it's not. My friend lives in Kanagawa, in the valleys. I don't live all that far away, so we hung out often. There isn't much around in the area. There are a couple of shops and a few houses, but the main reason people go out there is for the camping grounds. You have to drive up through the forest to get to my friend's house. It's pretty close to these camping grounds. The roads were lit with really old streetlights. It was busy in the summer and at the weekends, but when it was a weekday or not camping season, it would be quite a quiet and lonely place. The nights are very dark out there, and the road through that forest is very narrow. There's no guardrail either. That road is responsible for several accidents a year, some being fatal. His home was really old, so old in fact that it had an outhouse instead of a bathroom. In the main building of the house, the toilet was literally in the garden. His home is just behind a very simple bus stop and just next to it is a phone booth. You can see this from his outhouse bathroom window. It's about a meter away, a stone's throw. It's pretty funny. Actually, if you're standing there using the bathroom, Then you can see whoever's using the phone booth or waiting for the bus quite clearly if you open the window. Of course, because it's so quiet out there, my friend kept the window open all the time anyway. It was mid-October when this happened. The foliage lining the surrounding mountains and woods was changing. The trees' autumn leaves were being blown away to reveal naked jutting branches. My friend and I were up late and I felt nature's call, so I headed out to use the bathroom. I looked out of the window and, to my surprise, I saw an adult woman in the phone booth, which was usually empty. She was facing away from me and she was wearing a coat, so I couldn't see her face. She had gorgeous-looking hair, though it was dark and shoulder-length. She wasn't using the phone. She was just stood inside of the phone booth standing still. I called my friend to take a look and he thought she seemed pretty weird. It was already past midnight and no bus was going to come, so there was no reason to wait there. It's not usual to see someone waiting here to get picked up either. People don't really pass through here. We eventually came to the conclusion that she was waiting here for her boyfriend or someone. We didn't really care. She seemed fine, so we headed back in the house. The next night we were up late again messing around gaming, and I headed to the bathroom again. I looked out of the window and I saw the same woman that stood stock still in the phone booth. I watched her more closely. This time she wasn't moving. She looked to be slumped against the side of the phone booth. That's kind of weird, I thought to myself. She was facing away from me like last time, but I could see her face reflected in the glass panel. She looked dejected and sad, perhaps even lonely. She was looking down at the floor, not out at the road. I wondered if she had been stood up by her boyfriend or she had broken up with him recently. I thought that maybe this happened before and she had come to this particular spot to think about the past. I guess that phone booth had some sort of significant meaning to her, and she came back periodically to contemplate things. It was still weird to see someone out there at night at the phone booth, not using it 2 nights in a row. Even out here in the mountains, where attacks and murders aren't common, it's still not a great deal to hang out alone at night. I then thought to myself, what if she came here to end things? Maybe she was tired of roaming around her neighborhood, festering on the same old painful memories. I started to worry about her. I told my friend about this, and he said he would call the police. I said that before he did that, perhaps we should go and check on her ourselves. So we got our shoes on and headed towards the phone booth. However, when you leave my friend's house, you have to turn a corner to face the bus stop, and as we turned that corner to approach the phone booth, we were both shocked to see that it was empty and the woman was gone. We looked around the area. Despite it being dark, we could see quite well no one was around. I guess that she had heard the sound of someone approaching, or maybe even the door opening, and decided to hide or hurry home either way. I said to my friend, if she was there tomorrow, we should head out of the house quietly to approach her. He agreed. I was so determined to speak to her that I decided to come back later that night to investigate with him. So on the following night I checked through the window about the same time. I saw her last night and I saw her there again in the phone booth. I told my friend and we left the house as silently as possible through his front door, but when we rounded the corner to face the phone booth, she was gone again. My friend said that we should take the hint. She clearly wants to be left alone. He said that we should probably just call the police to perform a welfare check on her. He reminded me that it wasn't really against the law to stand in a phone booth at night. Creepy. Yes, crime. No, maybe I was making too much of it. I thought something was off, though I couldn't get her out of my head, but she was now gone. I headed back to his house with him, but stopped to use the bathroom, as I actually had to use it. I went to pull my sweatpants down, and then froze in horror. I looked out of the window and there was no one in the phone booth, but that didn't mean I wasn't alone. I looked beneath the door, and the gap between the floor and the door revealed a pair of female feet, wearing high heels. The toes were pointing towards me. The woman from the phone booth was now just the other side of the outhouse door. I gasped. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. My friend was indoors and I was out here alone. I tried to peek out of the window, but I couldn't see her from that angle. I was there half crouching with my back against the wall of the outhouse. Hey, the woman called. I was silent. I was scared. Hey, she kept repeating it. She didn't say anything else. I finally had the courage to respond after a few moments. What's wrong? Are you okay? Do you want me to call the police? She didn't answer. She just said, hey. I was worried. I decided that I was going to call the police. I didn't have a phone, though I needed to get back in the house. Then I heard her say, hey. Why? That was too much for me. I climbed out of the bathroom window and without looking back, I ran straight into my friend's house and I grabbed the phone. I waited with him until the police arrived. When an officer knocked at the door, we opened it and explained the situation. He asked for a description and then he searched the area and came back. He said that there was no one in the area. He promised to come back and patrol the streets, though my friend said that he saw a police car on occasion over the following days and the weeks, but he never saw the woman again. The strangest thing about that night was something I still find difficult to comprehend when I heard her say why. Twice, I swear. The second time I heard her say why, I heard it from inside the outhouse rather than outside, and that was why I had to get out of there. Something else that's kind of odd is the fact that my friend and I just kind of fell out of touch with one another. It's been a long while since we have talked. It's like something changed. That night I heard that woman's voice. I'd probably say that we aren't friends anymore. The final odd thing I feel worth mentioning is about a motorcycle. Yeah, I like going on long bike rides these days, so I go through that valley area now and then. It's got pretty sweet roads and I've always been curious if I would ever see her again. Sometimes I go past my friend's place too. The lights are always off. I wonder if he's moved and he just hasn't told me. One night I rode around the area on the road with the bus stop on it. I don't know how long I was riding for, but I came to a tunnel up ahead. I was out of the tunnel on the other side and I passed a phone booth. There was a woman in that phone booth that looked exactly like the woman I had seen at my friend's place. It had to be a coincidence. I was sure of it. Still, it was too much for me to stop and check. She was even wearing the same clothes. Did the woman move on? Is my friend somehow connected to her? Was it an apparition? Will I ever see her again? I have no idea. No news so far. I guess it can't be bad. This happened 10 years ago, and back in those days I was dating a woman I loved very much. I was living alone in an apartment and my girlfriend didn't live with me. When she finished work on the weekend, she came to stay with me all weekend long and then she would leave on Monday. She was due to come over on a Friday. I remember it was raining heavily that night. I was worried about her. She would usually arrive at 7 p.m. and I would be there with dinner ready waiting for her. She was such a pleasure to cook for. I waited and waited, but that night she didn't come. Usually she told me if she was running late or if she was staying late at work. So I was there, worried that she had an accident. I called her cell phone several times, but it was shut off or out of cell reception. I was really worried about her, so I went out into the rain to search for her. She lived with her parents, and since I had met them, we were friendly with one another. I decided to give them a call while I was looking for her. Her mother answered the phone and wondered why I was calling. I explained that her daughter hadn't arrived at my place and I couldn't get in touch with her. I asked them to let me know when she came home so I could speak to her. After searching the streets for a couple of hours, I decided to head home. Just in case she had made it to my apartment, I had given her a key to come and go, as she pleased. I really hoped I would see her there telling her wet hair, but when I got home I was greeted by an empty apartment. There was nothing I could do except wait for her or wait for her mother to contact me. I lay in bed as the rain lashed the windows and the distant thunder rumbled, praying I would hear my apartment door open or my phone ring. I must have fallen asleep briefly because I woke up to hear my phone ringing. I looked at my phone and there was an incoming call from a payphone. I answered it immediately. I heard the sound of heavy rain and then a quiet voice said, "Help me." Then the call disconnected. The voice was female. I was so worried I had no idea where the call came from, because it doesn't show that information when a call from a payphone comes through. I stayed up all night and I felt sick. Then, as soon as the dawn broke, I got another call. It was from the police. An officer asked me to go into the station for noon. I was worried, yet somewhat optimistic. I headed to the police station when the time arrived, without knowing what I was in for. I was told that my girlfriend's body had been positively identified by her parents in the morgue. I was in a state of utter disbelief and shock. She had been stabbed multiple times. I was briefed by the officer. I remained silent. I had no words. She was attacked on her way to my apartment. The attacker was still at large and her phone and the murder weapon were missing. I swear I almost lost my sanity that day. I felt as if I was losing my mind right there in that police station. I just couldn't believe it. I was going to propose to her. My company were transferring me and giving me a salary raise. I wanted her to come with me. Now that was all gone. Someone took her from me. I got home and got into bed. I have no idea how long I stayed in bed. I don't know how long I slept, but it never felt long hours. Minutes and seconds didn't matter to me. My phone started ringing at around midnight. The call was again from a payphone. I answered it and I heard the sound of heavy rain falling again in that same faint female voice. It was only just audible, as it said the same words as I heard the night before. "Help me." I swore at whoever it was. I was certain that someone was playing a imaginably cruel prank on me. I hung up, rolled over, and I guess I fell asleep. I wanted nothing more than sleep. That night's sleep meant I wasn't tormenting myself with unanswerable questions or blaming myself. I decided to go into work on Monday. The weekend had been rough and I didn't want to stay inside my apartment alone. I figured that work would be a welcome distraction from my own torment. I worked a lot of hours that weekend. It did help me not to forget. That's the wrong word, but the horrible pain of loss. Each night someone would call from that phone booth at exactly midnight. Every time I would hear the heavy rain in the background. I will give it to whoever was doing this to me. They had made sure they remembered that the night I lost her it was raining. They were precise with their torment. Why didn't I ignore the calls or block the number? I don't know. I guess I was hoping I would catch them out or hear something else. All I heard through the week was the faint voice of a woman say, "Help me." Meanwhile, the investigation into a murder was long in progress was halted. There appeared to be no suspect, no murder weapon, and no motive. I think a month went by. I wasn't exactly keeping my eye on the calendar. Each day felt the same since I lost her. As usual, the calls kept coming. They were determined. I was also determined to show that I wasn't scared to whoever was behind the pranks. One night I decided to look out of the window while I picked up the call. It wasn't raining, but I could hear rain on the other end of the line. I answered it and some kind of strange sense of unease washed over me like rain. Before the caller had the chance to ask for help, I instinctively asked, "Where are you?" The voice responded with the name of a park. I felt icy fingers rise up my back as the female voice sounded. Just like my late girlfriend, I threw open my door and put my shoes on and then raced the park with my cell phone in hand. The park is about 10 or 15 minutes away from my place. By foot, I swear, for a matter of seconds. Just as I rounded the corner to face the payphone, I saw her stood there with the phone against her chin. Her right arm was pointing in the direction of the woods. I looked over. I kept the phone pressed against my ear and I heard the words, "I'm sorry," that completely broke me. I dropped to my knees and from above rain began to fall. I must have been howling with the pain. I looked back at the phone booth and she was gone. The booth was still illuminated. The sensor light was on to indicate that someone had just been in there. I then got to my feet and walked over towards the direction she had pointed. I was now convinced that I was losing my mind. I didn't care. I saw her one last time. I'm certain of that, and that to me meant more than anything. I called the police and pleaded with them to check the park in the area where she pointed. To my surprise, they came and the police recovered the murder weapon and her cell phone. They said that those items looked like they had been buried in a hurry. At first, I was the main suspect in my stories at Pay. Phone calls and apparitions didn't exactly seem to convince the detectives of my innocence. However, a fingerprint was discovered on the evidence that was examined and processed, and it didn't belong to either me or my girlfriend. It belonged to one of her co-workers. Once he was brought in for interrogation by the police, he confessed he had apparently been stalking my girlfriend. He was obsessed with her. She turned him down and he decided that if he couldn't have her, then no one would. I was shocked because she never mentioned anything to me about this guy. She was suffering in silence. I wish she had told me what was going on. I remained in touch with her parents. They actively encouraged me to keep an open mind about meeting someone new and moving on. They said that if they heard I was dating one day, it would only make them smile. They said it's what she would have wanted, and I believed that her heart was too big. She was a saint, she tolerated so much. She was so patient that stalker Pisa from her work likely knew all that. I visit her grave from time to time. Her parents don't expect it of me. I'm glad it's all over. Her co-worker is going to rot in jail and, most importantly, her spirit is at rest. Oh, and the phone calls stopped coming from the payphone. I'll never change my phone number, just in case one day I get another call. I look forward to seeing incoming call from payphone appear on my cell phone, but until then I think of her whenever it rains. So okay, this one might leave some of you unsatisfied. This leaves me unsatisfied, but if you're of the same mind as me, it will leave you with something to think about for a while and maybe make you look twice each time you pass a phone booth. This happened when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I don't remember it all perfectly, but I remember enough. I used to collect telephone cards from here on out. I will refer to them as cards. I wasn't like an avid collector or anything. I would just pick them up when I found them, and I usually would find them in telephone booths. These cards are the old style ones which you could prepay in order to use the payphone. Do you know the ones I mean? I would usually find them either on the little table in the booth or on the floor in there. Of course, most of them were used, but on occasion I would find some which had some credit left on them, and I used to take that as a win. I liked the activity of looking for them and checking if they had anything on them. I'm showing my age here, because when I was a kid, cell phones weren't around. I think the pages had only just hit the market and no one had them that I knew. Sometimes these cards could be useful if they had any credit on them. I guess I'd say that on my walk home from school I would usually find about 3 on average a day. It was summer when I found the strange card in the booth. It was just a simple white card. I thought to myself, what the hell is this? Ain't what I'm looking for. I flipped the card over and I read something in bluish letters on the back. It read the right side of the video rental store. It was printed, not written by hand, and I knew the store as well. I had been to it often. I picked up loads of these cards before and I never found one like this. I wondered if it was a rare one like a Pokemon card or something. My logical brain kicked in and suggested to me that it was probably some promotional card for the video store. Still, something didn't seem right. I mean, it was a pretty crap advert for the place. It just said the store's name and then the number 16. I think it was number 16. Like I said at the start, a little hazy here. I think it was the following Saturday when I went to go check out the video store. I went to the place. The card told me to go the right-hand side, and when I got there I understood the meaning of the card. There were 3 telephone booths on the right-hand side of the video store. I went into each of them, and I found another card. A card with bluish printed letters on a white background. Honestly, I've tried but I can't remember the second location. I remember that the card said 15. So it meant that I found the card in the next natural order. I have to say I love this. It was like I was a character in a story from a book, a manga, an anime, or even a movie. The possibilities seemed endless. At that age, I couldn't believe that I had uncovered a mystery right here in my hometown. I kept thinking, what happens when I get to the card that says number 1? I had to tell my friends at school this mystery was too important to unravel solo. I shared with them the address on the next card I found, and none of us knew where it was. Everyone was so excited, but we just didn't know where to go. I was encouraged to show the card to one of my friend's older brothers. He was about 10 years older than me. He knew the next location instantly, and we were back in business. The next location was really far from home. It was a couple of miles away. I think it might have been a bowling alley or a game center. The next day, me and a select choice of my friends hopped on the train. Went to go get the car again. It was in a phone booth. This is where my memories get away from me. I remember following the cards all over the city right up until the point that we got them down to single digits. I found the next one and I had no clue where it was. I asked my friends at school and they didn't know. So we went to the Oracle. That was my friend's older brother and he didn't even know. We went to the library to try and look through the maps, but they were too complicated for us at that age. The adventure ended right there in the library, without any of us knowing at the time. We most likely got distracted by something else. Thinking back on it, it might have been someone playing a prank. However, it's a hell of an elaborate prank to play. I really wish we got to the end of the cards. It was such a fun summer memory, but we didn't. So if you go past the phone booth at any time soon, go ahead and take a look. If there's a white card with blue printed writing on the back in there for me, would you? Hi everyone. Thank you so much for watching and listening and commenting and liking and sharing and subscribing. And also let me extend the thanks to my supremely talented friend Mr. Papa. Scare. There it is. Come on. He's great. He calls me Jimmy. That's fine. I call him Pete. Oh, actually, I think he's just walked in the room. Oh, Jimmy. Your stories are the best and you're so spooky. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your channel. That's alright. Just he's cool. Just know. You really are the best. Jimmy. I love you. Mate. Thanks anyway. Sorry about that guy. Looking forward to seeing you all again in the next video. I'll see you soon. So you.